Hello buddy, it's Wyron here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we're on the Southern Chaos Wastes playing as the Wood Elves against the forces of the Greenskins, and this match is going to be scumbaggery extremo on my part. Basically going into this match, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I was thinking about doing something like a full kite build, which is very functional against Greenskins, but obviously a bit cheesy, and I'm not the biggest fan of pure kite builds. Obviously, going toe-to-toe with Greenskin Infantry is tantamount to suicide. I didn't really want to do a tree mob, and so I ended up with this weird, hypermobile, pick-em-apart sort of build. For my lord, I'm running a tree man, who is the only thing that's slow in this composition. That's because I need a caster. I wanted a caster, and, well, that's one of your only two options alongside Durthu. And I figured Lore of Life is probably more useful than Lore of Beasts. At least in this case. Maybe not, who knows. But I did want to have Earthblood. We also do have Awakening Wood on him, so I can beat up on Goblin clumps and Orc Boy clumps, Life Bloom for the heals, and a Power Stone just to get extra Winds of Magic. Obviously not bringing most of his peripheral stuff because we're trying to keep him as cheap as possible. And the Ancient Treeman is not bad to begin with. Like, you can throw him into melee with most stuff, he'll bog him down. He's got good melee defense, respectable melee attack, he's got AP. All in all, pretty tanky boy, definitely very good. Alongside him, we do have two units of Waystalkers, or two Waystalkers. These guys both have Arrows of Kurnus. They're there to troll my opponent's heroes. If my opponent especially brought a Goblin Shaman or a Great Shaman or whatever, or Wardsag, these guys can pick them off with ease. Otherwise, they can definitely chip down Rock Lobbers, chip away elite units, that sort of thing. Very, very powerful unit. The only other foot troops here, two Waste Watchers, because I was a little worried about Black Orc spam. Now, it's weird, you don't really see it very often from Orcs, but occasionally you will see Black Orcs come making an appearance in this matchup, and that's actually what my opponent did here, triple Black Orcs. So a bit of a strange choice, in my opinion. But it can be a nasty surprise pick, just because if you go with a very mobile build, or go for melee builds with Elves, you're going to get trashed by Black Orcs. Now, out on the flanks, we do have most of our hitting power. So, double up Wild Riders over here, one of which is the Wild Hunters of Kurnus. On the other end, similar case, we do have normal Wild Riders with shields ×2. Both of them are chevroned up quite a bit. We've got two are on 4 chevrons. I think the one's over there as well. And these guys are over here on 3. Finally, Sisters of the Thorn in the center. These guys are just there to provide support with their magic and poke away and act as an extra melee cab, essentially. Now for my opponent's build, well, he has gone with Azag, not a bad choice in this match, so you definitely got to be careful. He's got quite the, well, actually not quite the selection. He's only got Fate of Buna, Life Leeching, Foe Seeker, and Wa. So definitely an interesting choice. I would have expected Spirit Leech in exchange for Foe Seeker, probably. But for some reason, my opponent went with that. He's immediately going to be Fate of Buna my poor Wild Riders, so that's going to be rough stuff. In the meantime, on the periphery, well, my opponent's build does consist of 2 Rock Lobbers, 3 Black Orcs, as we already noted, some Orc Boys on the flanks, never a bad choice just because they can soak up some shots, 2 units of Orc Boy with Big Guns, a unit I've been seeing a whole bunch more of lately, and I'm not entirely sure why. If it's people just not coming in from Warhammer 1, not used to the meta, or not just testing the unit out. It's not a very good unit, guys, and I really wouldn't recommend it against the Wood Elves, but we'll see how they perform here. Definitely, perhaps looking to counter trees with them. In the meantime, for the rest of it, 2 Orc Arrow Boys in the front here alongside Rusty Arrows, as well as some Night Goblin Archers, so definitely quite a bit of DACA in this build, though we'll see how they hold up. Now, the Wolf Riders here are actually dumpstering my poor Wild Riders because Fate of Buna and Azag came in. On this flank over here, the Moon Howlers are trying to get into the fight. They are the renowned Goblins that cause fear. But we are going to counterattack with the Sisters of the Thorn. Sisters of the Thorn, not necessarily the most adept sort of combat cap, but because they do have that physical resist, I think it's 40%. They're pretty disgusting. They can definitely tangle with cheap trash like Wolf Riders. Now on the periphery, in the meantime, we do manage to rout off the Goblin Wolf Riders with the help of our Wild Riders, who have dove in on the Orc Board with Big Guns. Unfortunately, this unit of Wild Riders, you're completely shattered. Still have 20 models, but just snapped and fled. And now we're kind of meandering over here with our Tree Man as this fight is degenerating. You can see there's Orc Board with Big Guns in there, Orc Boys. On this flank over here, my opponent is committing to try to push off my Cav contingent. My Way Watchers, in the meantime, teeing off first on the Orc Board with Big Guns because they are the most imminent threat, and then we're going to be focusing on the Black Orcs. Over here, we are able to remove the Orc Board with Big Guns, and this is why Orc Board with Big Guns are just not good against Wood Elves. They can't trade into units like Wild Riders. It's simple, true facts there. Now, in the meantime, my opponent is able to sort of push forward with Wah, obviously, huge speed boost to both the big guns as well as the Moon Howlers, who are now up to 115 speed, which is just pure bonkers. And of course, much better melee attack because of that. So they're just pushing in, and my Way Watchers here are about to get caught, which is just disastrous. I can't let my Way Watchers get caught because I need them to deal with those Black Orcs. But fortunately, the Sisters of the Thorn are on point, so they're going to swing in there, tie these guys down. The Wild Riders as well. We're just going to start collapsing while the Way Watchers continue fleeing from the fight. Over here, Azag has dove in, but he is getting his ass handed to him by Ancient Tree Man, who is just a way better duelist. Azag is really just a pretty piteous combat lord in close combat, just because he doesn't have a good melee defense. He's decent in a cycle charge, but he can't fight in sustained combat, and the Waystalkers are having their way with him. Just chipping him away. Of course, he's only got 70 armor. Now, I'm not entirely sure how much missile resist he's got mixed into that. It's just 15%, like the usual thing. Oh no, he's got 25%. He's got the full blown scaly skin, which is nice. But he now does take an arrow of Kurnus to the face, and he's just getting melted. And now in come the Wild Riders from this flank, swooping in for the kill. Unfortunately, these Wild Riders over here did get a bit chased off. My opponent here is trying to get in there with the Goblin Wolf Riders to save Azag, but it's just not happening. He's lost most of his mobility at this point. And things are looking very, very grim. His Orc board by big guns all the way out here. The Moon Howlers fled. Way Watchers just running away because they can, and Black Orcs aren't going to catch him. And at this point, it's just a massacre. You can see Azag running for dear life here now, down to 600 HP. Still trying to take the skies, constantly being chipped away at by the Wild Hunters. 70 armor is not terrible, but it's just not enough. And the Waystalkers are still firing, and they're able to land another double shot over there, down to 216 HP. And now Azag just completely removed from play. So after a very frenetic fight, now things are kind of resetting. Over here, we are able to get the Wild Hunters on top of the artillery battery. This Rock Clobber is basically a goner. This one we might be able to shut down as well. Over here, our Wild Riders get the jump on these boar boys, trash them, put them in the dumpster where they belong. And in the meantime, the Way Watchers are just having a field day, shutting down Black Orcs because Black Orcs can't hold up to them. Azag is just going to flee. Over here, these Wild Riders very low on HP, but the Sister's still very healthy, so in that initial exchange, we definitely took some losses. All our Wild Riders are very badly mauled. Our Tree Man is kind of mauled. We did lose an entire unit of Wild Riders and close to a second one. But on the flip side, we've removed all of our opponent's mobility. And this is really key with cav builds. If you're able to get rid of your opponent's mobility, you can often win. So you can see here the Catapult is trying to do some damage at point blank against these Wild Riders who dove in on the Archers. But, you know, they're able to swing around, get away, and just extricate themselves here before they take too much damage. In the meantime, over here on the flank, the Sisters of the Thorn are going to dive in, disrupt these board by big guns, force them to flee, and we're sort of just decimating our opponent from all sides. So at this point, sure, that initial fight, if we went by pure numbers, now Azag was removed, which is huge. Obviously, against Greenskins, who don't have the best leadership, removing a Lord is massive. But besides that, just getting rid of all that mobility is now increasing our odds, and having removed an artillery piece also improves our odds. Personally, I think you're better off with Doom Divers against Wood Elves. That's just my take, because they're much more universal. They'll do well against their infantry. They'll do well against their monsters. But nonetheless, those Rock Clobbers are a big threat to my Way Watchers. So having removed one, it's very, very nice. The Black Orcs here trying to be helpful, but it's just not working. And in the meantime, the Wild Riders just ignore the Black Orcs and get in on these Orc boys, and they're just decimating them. They immediately get terror routed. They're getting torn to shreds. The Black Orcs who are trying to help getting shot to death by Way Watchers and the Waystalkers, and it's just an ugly sight. In the meantime, over here, you can see our cav just trying to sneak around, just evading the Orc boys, just not giving them the fight, not getting bogged down there too much. Sure, there's some archery fire harassing our Way Watchers, but we're just going to back off. We actually break these Black Orcs. Over here, an Awakening of the Wood does go down, doing 1,700 damage on these Night Goblin Archers. They were very, very clumped, and they are now spattered with the blood and guts of their comrades. And in come the Wild Riders, doing more cleanup in Isle 9. And at this point, these isolated archers are now in a very, very bad spot. These Black Orcs are now getting torn to shreds. And slowly but surely, we're whittling my opponent down. Over here, the Rusty Arrows getting run down by this blob of cavalry. Over here, well, the Black Orcs are just out of position. The Rock Clobber is the only thing left. There's two Arrow Boys, sure, they're kind of a threat. But things just not looking good. And the Waystalkers and the Way Watchers are still in there. They're going to be able to keep chipping away at these guys. And the Tree Man is still at 3,700 HP, so and we do still have Winds of Magic left, so it's not like we're completely crippled. He does have 35% missile resist plus his armor, or 35% resist against physical missiles. And so these Arrow Boys are not going to cut it. The Rock Clobber really doesn't have a chance of hitting him. You can see another Awakening of the Wood here, going down on the Orc Arrow Boys. It does a lot less, only does about 600 damage against them. Probably shouldn't have used it, probably should have just saved from another Oathblood later on. But hey, I wanted to try it out. Did try to get a quick break on these boys here with the Wild Riders. It didn't work out as I'd hoped. So what can you do? Win some, you lose some. But at this point, it's basically a matter of time. These Black Orcs here getting run down. These Black Orcs here getting isolated. Here we are going to be able to sandwich these Arrow Boys, whose leadership is already on the ropes. So they're getting jumped in on by the Sisters of the Thorn, as well as these Wild Riders' shields, and they're getting completely decimated. We do get a nice little Earthblood in there as well to heal these boys back up. And then promptly cut and run as the Black Orcs come screaming in, because we don't want to stick around there. And in the meantime, these Black Orcs are getting torn apart. You can see an Arrow of Kurnus going in, decimating those Black Orcs further. They lose a couple models. I guess only one there, but what can you do? In the meantime, these Black Orcs are getting run down. And so, slowly but surely, we're whittling my opponent down. He's down to just this pocket with the Black Orcs, but at this point, army losses are kicking in. And it's going to be a full-on win for the Wood Elves. Pyrrhic victory. So in this case, I think my opponent's build definitely had some flaws. I think lack of Spirit Leech was a bit of a mistake. I think Spirit Leech is always nice to bring if you bring a Lord of Death. And choosing the Black Orcs is an awkward choice. That said, my build definitely had a good advantage here with the mobility. If my opponent had gone with, say, a Campier build, with, say, a bunch of Doom Divers, we would still have potential to pick them apart with Waystalkers. Kind of just hide away with Cavalry. If my opponent pushed out with Goblins, then we could shut those down with Wild Riders. And, yeah, the Waystalkers could just do away with the Artillery for most part. The Waywatchers are still a good counter to enemy Lords, picking away at Elites. And the Tree Man is always actually a powerhouse. He did give me a Terror Bombs multiple times that game. He was really able to just anchor the line when things were going down. It was basically a one-man front line. And did a pretty banged up job just wrecking everything. So, would I call this necessarily a most competitive build? No. Is it tournament legal? Also no. Because I do believe you can't spend that much on Wild Riders. You'd probably, if you were trying to make this tournament legal, you'd probably have to cut a Wild Rider. Which I think wouldn't even matter that much. You could probably swap them out for like a Sister of the Thorn or some Glade Riders or something in there. It probably wouldn't hurt the build too much. But by and large, it is it's a pretty workable strategy. The Waystalker's obviously an absolute powerhouse at sniping enemy lords. Had my opponent gone with this, like Goblin Great Shamans or Goblin Shamans or Wurtzak, who's still a pretty popular pick in this matchup. Honestly, basically any lord except Grimgor, Waystalkers can snipe over time very, very effectively. And you saw this in this game where they beat up on Azag fairly effectively. You saw it. You've seen it obviously in prior games where they just tear apart units, and definitely nasty force there. If I was to advise my opponent, I would say ditch the Boar Boy Big Guns, they're not worth it. Ditch the Goblin Rock Loppers, they're not worth it. And ditch the Black Orcs. Azag's not a bad choice, but go wider with your front line, get more Goblins in there, get some more Orc Boys in there. Orc Arrow Boys, you can make them work. I prefer Goblins, to be honest, but you can make Orc Arrow Boys work. I would try to get some Doom Divers in there and some more Cavalry. Cheap Cav. Because you don't need super expensive cap. If you're the wad up or you got him supported with some magic, maybe you're going like a Night Goblin Shaman just with 1 or 2 spells. And you can make units like Spider Riders trade incredibly well with Wild Riders. Stack on top of that, you can sort of beat up the Wild Riders ahead of time with like a Doom Diver catapults or units like that. And it's a much better situation. Orc Boar Big Guns just don't trade. Their AP is basically useless because Wild Riders have almost no armor to begin with. Their melee stats are not very good. And their armor is only 60. So Wild Riders turn them to mulch. And the unit just does not hold up. It's a sad, sad unit right now. There's really not much to be said for it. And especially in this match, I wouldn't bring them. If you're going to bring any Boar Cav, which I wouldn't even... I'm not sure. You can pull it off, I guess. I've done it myself sometimes. But I'd probably just go with normal Boars. Just get that cheap shielded Cav and make it work. But those are my 2 cents. Yeah, the Black Orcs I think were probably the biggest mistake. They're just very expensive and got shut down by the Waywatchers. They got some kills, sure, but nowhere near enough to pay for themselves. It's going to be tough against almost any Wood Elf build, because no Wood Elf is going to give you a stand-up fight, unless it's a Tree Blob. But a Tree Blob is going to mess you up in other ways, so I just don't think the Black Orcs are a good choice. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you found it entertaining and fun. I know it was a bit cheesy and scummy, but hey, it was a fun build. It was nice and mobile, not too kitey. Yeah, it worked rather well. So, hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments, criticism, questions, don't hesitate to put them down below. I'll respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.